Hey everybody, it's Kelly with Inky Hands Warm Hearts. How are you guys? So happy to be here with you. We are going to be making this really awesome card with the Cheerful Daisies Bundle, which I've been using all week, and of course the in colors. The 5 in colors are what I've been trying to showcase this week, and I hope that you've been enjoying the videos. All right, let's go ahead and get started with this card. I also included this border die right here in the basic borders, and I used that on this portion of my card. I've already die cut it out, but I'm going to show you how to reduce the label die down because it's a lot bigger, as you can see right here. I'll pull it out so you can see it. So it's a lot bigger than the one that was used, and I'm going to show you how to make it smaller. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that out. We've also used this piece here, and I've trimmed apart the flowers, and there's one inside this one. And I cut the stems from this die right here. And I've used thick basic white cardstock to do all my die cutting so that my my daisy would be nice and firm and hold up to watercoloring. So I've already die cut those as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's all my parts and pieces. I'm gonna have to measure for you because I didn't take the time to write down the measurements like I usually do. I've just been so excited with the fact that I am able to stamp again that I think I've lost I've lost my way. Okay, so I know that this base of our card is 5.5 by 8.5 because that's a normal base, and I'm going to use my bone folder to burnish this piece of scrap underneath me. I'm using to keep getting ink and water onto my mat that I use. So this is the 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4.25, and then this layer here is at 4 by 5.25, and it's copper clay. It's our new in color that I'm using, and of course this is as well our copper clay. Now I didn't like how this corner turned out, so we're going to stamp this together, and we're going to use copper clay on copper clay with the cluster of 3 daisies from the Cheerful Daisies stamp set, this one right here. And so we're just going to go ahead and you want to stamp off the edges, and then you want to make sure that you turn your stamp. You don't ever want it to be in the same position when you're stamping. And that's what gives it the random look, by you changing the position and adding, oops, I missed that completely, and adding your corner pieces. I like to just put a tiny little bit of my stamp to the edges so it doesn't look like it's missing something. So there, that's good. Let's go ahead and stamp the rest of that off. You know how I clean as I go, so today is no exception. All right, so we're gonna clean our stamp. Now let me show you how I went about doing our label, and we are gonna use the same copper clay ink on a scrap I have here of boho blue, which is one of the new in colors. And so we're stamping the sentiment. There's 3 different, or actually 4. We're stamping the smaller one here. And so we're just gonna stamp that in the middle right here on this piece so that we have room on either side to shorten our die. Oh, that was not a good one. Let's flip it over and try again. I must have wiggled or did something, who knows, but we'll try it again. That's why I love that every sheet of paper, there we go, perfect, has 2 sides, because everybody makes mistakes. All right, let's clean that off, and then I will show you how I went about partially die cutting. All right. So in order to partial die cut, you have to hang your piece off of your end, and I'll show you. I'm gonna go ahead and use my mini because this is big enough. We're gonna use platform number 1 and cutting piece number 2, and we're gonna lay this down here. We're gonna put the die where we want that to lay. So we're gonna bring it down a little bit. We want it kind of close, right, to that piece, but we don't want that Y underneath this piece, so we're gonna slide it down. And sometimes you have to kind of bend your dies so that they will stay where you want them to and not slide around your plate. So there's that one. I'm gonna grab my cover die if I can find it. I don't know what I've done with it now. I've lost it. Maybe we'll be using the big die because I don't know what I've done with my other die plate. I thought I had them right here next to me, but apparently I do not. Oh wait, here we go, found it. It was hiding. They're see-through, so they like to hide. All right, so we're gonna cover this piece, and we are going to make sure that we do not cut this whole piece, and I'm gonna show you what I mean by that. So I'm gonna bring our clear plate over the top, and I'm gonna slide it in, and I'm going to make sure that it is not covering. I want to make sure this is placed just where I want it. Okay, there we go. That we don't go all the way to the end. So we're going to stop right there about the end of those words. So we're going to slide it in until it grabs, and then we're going to go ahead and crank it through. And you see it will only cut what's underneath it. So it's not going to cut this portion at all. So I have to, unfortunately, hold on to it because the mini machine is lightweight, so it's very wiggly. All right, we're gonna slide that back out, and I'm gonna show you what we have so far. So see how that only cut a portion? So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna turn it upside down, and we're gonna find those little indentions in our die, and we're going to line it up so that it doesn't shift, and we're going to figure out approximately where we want those pieces to be, and that looks pretty good to me. We have everything covered, so we're going to place it in this direction, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put this die in first. And we don't want it to cut all the way through, right? Because the other portion is already cut. So we're going to stop it about right there. And so I'm going to push this into the machine. And when it's grabbing, I'm going to go ahead and turn my handle. It will only cut to that piece, okay? So when I lift this off, see how it popped right out of there? It's still stuck in the grooves. So there is our die cut piece that's smaller. Didn't that turn out great? So let's set that to the side. We don't need that right now. I am going to trim my scrap piece, which I tend to do. I know. I take care of things as I go. It's just who I am. And I put this away because if I don't, guess what'll happen? I'll lose it, and then I'll be sad because I won't know where it is. So if I put it away as I'm crafting, it'll be there when I'm ready for it again. All right, so there's that. Let's get this die out of the way. We're done with all the extracurricular die cutting. Now I'm going to show you how to use the watercoloring elements to this card. So we're going to take this white die cut and then these pieces here. I'm going to grab my silicone mat. I'm going to use that. Put that under. And we're going to snip these pieces apart, okay? We don't want them together, so we're going to go ahead and cut this daisy away from the other two daisies. That's the nice thing about these dies, is that you could use them together or separate. So this one's going to go on the inside. This one we're going to trim from the big one, okay? And I'm just going to round off where that piece was connected. So there's my second one. And then I have these three little bits where we trimmed those pieces off. So I'm just going to snip those off. Okay, so there's our large daisy, and now we just need to separate the leaves, and we're gonna leave those like that, and there's our large daisy. Now the only thing I'm gonna pull out of this large daisy die, I'm gonna leave all those little circles in place, but I'm gonna pull these longer pieces out and just leave the center intact. Let's see if I can get that one. That one doesn't want to fall out, does it? There we go. All right. And then on this one, since most of these dots already fell out, I'm going to go ahead and leave that one out so that we have uniformity. All right. So we're going to die cut now not die cut, we're going to watercolor the green pieces. I'm going to show you how I do that part first. So I'm going to use a clear block and I'm going to blend two colors together. I wanted to use only in colors. So I'm using a blue and a yellowish brown. This is our wild wheat, and there's the cardstock that we're going to be using right here on this piece. So you can see that it's a yellowy brown, and when you mix yellow and blue, what do you get? Green. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put a couple drops of the blue. Okay. And we're going to take a little bit less of the wild wheat. This is why I love getting the re-inkers. Not only can I re-ink my ink pads so that they last forever, but you can do these kinds of techniques, which is always a lot of fun. So I'm going to grab my little bowl, and I keep on hand a few little bowls that I use when I watercolor. So we're going to add some water to that bowl. Okay, that should be more than enough. Okay, so we're gonna dip. This is the medium, the one in the middle of the three. This is the finest point and the widest, so I'm using the center one of the water painters, and I'm gonna just grab some water by squeezing it and grab it in the reservoir. Okay, and I'm gonna just drop a little bit right here. Okay, then I'm going to pull a little bit of blue and a little bit of the yellowy brown, and I'm going to put a tiny bit more blue in it. It's a little bit too dark for me, so we'll put a little more blue and it'll get a more olivey green color. Okay, I'm going to move this water out of the way. I'm going to grab a scrap piece of paper. I do keep scraps on my desk. And putting it on the mat. And we're going to start with our leaves here. And I'm going to go the darkest down the center, and then I'm just going to watercolor. Okay, if I want a little bit more, I'm going to let that dry a little. I'm going to darken a few of the pieces here. Okay, and let's do the stems. So we'll grab those. We'll use the same green that we've made with those two colors. And we'll do our stems, and then those will get to dry. Let's get the last bit of this green that we created. And pick up the final remnants and do that piece there. And we should be good to go. We have our green, so we'll let that air dry here. All right, so now we still have the blue and the wheat, and I'm gonna go into my water that I made, and I'm gonna purge that color, and I'm also gonna try and grab a little bit. And we're gonna turn to a different spot. We're gonna start watercoloring our flowers. So all of our flowers are blue. We're gonna start with the large one first. And so we're gonna take this blue, mix it with some water, okay? And then we're going to just go ahead and paint our flowers. Now, I didn't wet my paper first because I wanted it to be a little bit darker of a blue, and it's gonna fade as it dries. Anything that's watercolored will get lighter as it dries. So we're gonna grab blue, squeeze a little water, pick up a little water maybe. And what I love about this look here is that it truly is, you can see the strokes, and those are going to be evident in the final piece. So if you go over it, you're going to have some dark pieces that are going to show. And then I'm just going to use what's left and wash the center. I am going to do the center in a different color, but let's do all the blue first and get it out of the way. So I missed this little part of there we go. All right, let's grab a little bit more water, put a little more blue in there, and let's do this one. This one I'm gonna let be a little bit lighter. It's the inside flower, and I just want it to be a little more pale. And then I'm just gonna use what's left and wash that piece. Let me darken it just a hint right here for these edges. All right, so then this one's gonna dry, and let's do our last one. So again, water, grab some blue, mix it, and we're gonna come here and do our petals. And I'm using the darker on the tips, and I'm washing the center. I'm gonna add a little bit more blue to this water to darken this flower a little. I don't want it to be as pale as the one inside, but I don't want it to be quite as dark as the large one. So there's a balance, a slight balance that we're making here. But yeah, see how I'm leaving the inner section a little bit light. All right, so those are my 3 flowers. So now I'm gonna purge the blue in this water until it runs clear. I'm done with my blue. And now we're gonna take the wild wheat color, which is that yellowy brown, and we're gonna do the center. So I'm gonna use another part of my scrap paper, and I'm gonna deposit some water, and I'm gonna add a little bit of that color in here. And I'm actually gonna darken it up pretty good. All right. And we're gonna go in here, we're gonna do the centers of the flowers. And it bleeds a little bit into the petals, which I love. And we're going to leave it there. Let's do the next one. And the last one. All right. Gonna let that sit and dry. I'm gonna purge this in here. And now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna wash our piece here. So let's move these guys out of the way. I'm gonna leave them on their paper. And just take this piece and let that air dry while we're working on this piece. So this piece, let me grab my card again so that you can see, is this backdrop here that's behind the flowers. So I'm gonna wet it first. Just give it a wash, but not too wet. I'm gonna take the pure color, mix it with a tiny hint of water, and then let it do its thing. And I want yellow everywhere. And so I'm gonna make sure that it reaches the ends. I don't want any of it white. I want it to be kind of pale and mustardy. And so I'm just filling in. I'm gonna grab a little more water, get those edges, and then add a more diluted version. And you can see how the paper's curling. That's what paper does when there's water on it. But that's okay. All right, so I'm just purging my aqua painter, and in that water, just flushing it out. And then I keep a microfiber cloth, and I just like to wipe it so it's not dripping before I cap it. And then as far as the leftover, I'm gonna use a baby wipe to clean that up. If you're doing multiple cards, you can see that you don't need very much. It goes a long way. But if you're doing multiple cards, you can continue. But this is it for us for today. So I'm just gonna kind of clean my block and get rid of the leftover. And I'm gonna help this paper along with its drying process because we're not gonna be here all day, right? I'm trying to teach you, but we don't have patience. So we're gonna keep on keeping on. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my heat tool, and I'm gonna give it a little help. Now it's curling the opposite direction. So I'm gonna give it a little help and turn it the other way. And I just keep doing this until I get a dry piece. And every time it wants to curl one way, I push it the other. And I'm going to put this block on there to help me a little bit. And just finished drying it. I'll flip it over so you can see the color, and we're going to go ahead and get those ends dry. Sorry about all the noise. All right, the last thing I do to help straighten out any projects that I have to heat is I just lift up my paper and I run my bone folder along it. And it kind of helps break the fibers down just slightly, enough to smooth out any curling. All right, I'm gonna bring my scrap paper back in, and we are going to have a fun time here with our words. So I'm gonna use our Moody Mauve, And I'm going to use the words that say, "You make my day." They're attached on the other side right here of this block. And so I'm just going to randomly stamp those. I'm inking that up, and I'm going to go full strength, and then I'm going to go half strength, and then a little bit less. And we'll do that again. We're just going to move it to a different part. We're going to go full strength and then half strength, just like that. And again over here, we're going to go full strength, half strength. And I'm going to do it one more time. I'm just going to stamp off this time, and I'm going to add that right in the middle because that's where it's going to show the most. And I think I'm going to do one more stamped off over here like that, and maybe right there. All right, so I'm happy with that. Let's go twice off, and I'm going to put another one in the middle. There we go. So you just basically randomly stamp however you wish, and that's that piece. Okay, so let's go ahead and clean this stamp, and we are done with our stamping. We're going to do a little bit of assembly now. I'm going to show you how I made my linen bow while we give the flowers a little bit more chance to be dry. All right. Okay, so let's do our bow. Set this over here with our wet flowers. All right, so for the linen bow, I took some linen thread and I just wound it around my fingers 4, 5, 6 times. I don't remember how many times, but I took all 4 fingers and I just went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6, like that. Since I have not much left on here, I'm just going to go ahead and do what was left, and I'm going to hold it in a bow form, and this piece that's dangling is what I'm going to use to attach it. So I'm going to wrap it around, and it forms a loop. See, there's the loop. As you wrap it around, and you're going to put your thread through that loop, and you're going to pull, still holding one side of your loops. And then you're going to give it a little tug. And then that forms this really fun bow. I have a little bit of strays, so I'm going to trim those off. Linen thread does that. And then we'll cut that end off later, but then what I like to do is I like to fluff it up. So I'll like mess with it, pull the loops out, do the other side. I don't like it to sit and just do its thing. I like to kind of make it a little wild. So there's that. I'm going to set this to the side and let's start the assembly. So we're going to attach this piece and this piece together. All right, we did a good job of stamping that. So before we do that though, let's go ahead and let's put this piece on. It's already dry, so I'm going to use my dimensionals. And I'm going to put quite a few. You don't have to use as many as me. It's just my way, and I totally get it if people don't want to use this many dimensionals on their projects. But if you watch me at all, you'll know that I go a little overboard with adhesive. I just take a lot of time to make my projects, and I really like to make sure that they're not going to come apart, that the recipient that receives them is going to get a card that stays together. All right, one more to go. There we go. That one fell off. I think I reached my limit on this take your pick tool. All right, so let's go ahead and attach this onto this piece, and we're going to center that here and here. Whoops, before I forgot to do something. Guys, I always mess up in front of you. I'm telling you. Let me pull this off first. I forgot that we were going to put that border on. And we're just going to use a little wet glue, and then we can add more dimensionals. So we'll leave those other ones alone. But I almost forgot about our border piece. So there it is. We're going to run some wet adhesive. Let me grab my silicone mat again. And we're going to put that along this edge, and then we'll attach our border piece to it. There we go. All right. So let me flip this over, and I want my border piece to be even. And if I use the silicone mat, this is the perfect. And I want to move it up right till where it meets those dots that crest downward. So we're going to go ahead and place it like that. That looks good to me. And I'm just going to make sure that we're even at the top and the bottom, and that this is nice and laid out here. It is. I'm going to hold that in place for a second. And now let's finish with our dimensionals. It's a shame I had to pull those off, but it's okay. I can put one on each of these crests, and I'll probably put one here, one here. I know, a little extra, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and pull them off. And now we can attach it. Sorry guys about that. I got ahead of myself. I just totally spaced about that border piece. So see how pretty that is up against there with that wash? And the blue is really gonna pop. So we're gonna adhere this piece right here, and we're gonna make sure that we're even top and bottom. And I think that looks pretty good to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and maybe a little bit higher. Yeah, right there. I tend to not be a measurer, but an eyeballer, and it tends to work out. Okay, there we go. Now we can attach this piece, and we're gonna attach it again with dimensionals, as if I haven't used enough dimensionals on one card. Now, you don't have to use dimensionals. You could go straight down with some multi-purpose adhesive. Let's use these ends. I do like to use the pieces that I pull out from, oh, I missed one. I'll put one more on the other side. I do like to use these edges. I definitely use every little bit that I get. All right, so that should be enough. Let's go ahead and pull the backs off. And then this piece is going to get attached to make sure my card opens the right direction, because I have done that before. All right, and we're gonna make sure 3 sides are equal, and then that should make the 4th one equal as well. There we go. Looks good to me. What do you guys think? This little tail sticking out just slightly. All right, so that's what we have so far. Now comes our little flowers. They're still slightly wet. I'm just gonna give them a quick blowout. This one's dry. Let me see about my leaves. My leaves are dry and my stems are dry. Just these guys got a little oversaturated. I'm just gonna give them a quick blow. All right, that should be enough. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a dimensional on the back center of both of these, if I can find my new package of dimensionals. Here we go. All right, I want to use a regular sized one. That's why I'm not using the edge, because I don't want it to stick out beyond those. This will ensure that those little dots stay in place. And then I'm going to use my edges to apply onto these. But first I want to give this a stem. So I'm going to grab this piece and I'm going to glue it back behind right here. So I'm going to add a little bit of multi-purpose adhesive on this section here. Well, if I can get it going anyway. There we go. And that should grab my stem. There we go. Come on. Grab on. All right. So there's my stem of my flower, but now I want to put a little strip. So I'm going to use these edges here. And I'm just going to cut however many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't know how many petals are on here, but let's start pulling these off. And we'll put one on each petal. This will really help to secure and hold down our flower because these petals are delicate. We don't really want them to pop up. So we want to make sure that we have enough. I don't know how many petals are on here. I didn't count them, but I'm going to go ahead and put one behind each petal. This card is super pretty. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. Looks like we need 3 more. I think I want this to go this way. All right. Let me see. Do I? No, I think I want it to go the other way. Let's see if I can lift this petal here. There we go. That looks good. All right, let's put one on that petal across. 2, 3. All right, and then the last piece, we're going to put 2 little thin pieces. So I'm going to cut this piece pretty thin, and we're going to put these on the stem because I want the stem to have some stability, but it's kind of narrow. So that's why I love these edges, because you can customize them to any size that you want. All right. Okay, so that looks fantastic. Let's go ahead and pull the backs off. So we'll start with the center. And then, okay, they're going to give me problems, it looks like. So I think because the flower's still a little bit wet, let's see if I can adhere this back on here. There we go, it got pulled. All right, well, plan B. You guys know this is real live crafting with me, and things happen all the time. When you're in your craft room, you just have to find solutions. So I guess I'm gonna just put a new piece. I hate that that piece got peeled off, but not much I can do about it. We will just roll with the punches, and I'll leave that for last. I'll put that last on there. Oh, that one's already done. Let's pull the rest of these guys off. I actually am gonna hand pull them. Oh Lord, this flower is really wet. But I'll show you how you're not even gonna notice when we put it back together. Let me pull the backs off. Kind of a disaster, but not really, because in the real world, if I wasn't recording this, I would have let it dry naturally and then come back and do it, and I wasn't thinking that it was going to be too wet still to take the adhesive. So what I need you guys to do when you're making this card is don't rush. Let your flower completely dry before you try to adhere anything on it. But I'm going to salvage it. I'm going to show you. So let's grab this. And we're going to go ahead and lay it maybe like this. Yeah, I think I want it this way. And then we're going to go ahead and place, we're going to slide this piece in, and it's just going to be a support. It doesn't have to stick. So I'm just going to slide this dimensional in so that it has the color that I need under there. Fabulous. And then we're going to attach this portion of our flower right on here, like so. And so you can't even tell that it was ripped, and I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see in a minute. I'm just making sure that all my pieces are attached. And then for the smaller flower, we're just going to leave the adhesive in the center. I'm not going to put any on the petals. I didn't put any on the petals of my original flower. I'll show you in a second. So this one we're going to just place, you know, kind of near it, like so. I'll show you my original. See, there's no adhesive under these petals so that I could move them. So we'll go ahead and attach that there. Let's go ahead and throw away these pieces, and we'll add the leaves. And the way that I chose to do the leaves before is I just put a little bit of mini glue dots onto the base portion of the leaves. Let me grab those. So right here on these two little pieces, I put mini glue dots right there. And the rest is just up, lifted up, and then I put wet adhesive on this portion with my multi-purpose glue right there on this portion so that it would stick under the petal. So this one's going to stick under this petal here. Let's see if I can lift it. All right. I think actually I'm going to have it come from this side. I'm going to lift this petal instead. And I think it'll be a lot prettier. There we go. So I'm going to have the flowers are different, every one, right? So there's my leaves. And then the last piece we're going to do for the front is we're going to put our sentiment, okay? So this side here needs a mini dimensional. I'm out of them on that sheet. Let me grab a new sheet of minis. All right, we're not going to do that because I don't know where they are. So we're going to just trim this, and we'll just put this little piece on here. This will be enough for a mini dimensional. It's similar to having one anyway. All right, so there's that one. And then this piece is going to glue right over the top. It's going to have its support, but I need a piece here and here. So we're going to use these pieces. So we have room for that. And then let's use these two side by side here. So let's look and see how that's going to look. Just like that. I think that looks fantastic. And before we attach that down, we want to make room for our ribbon. So I'm going to make sure that I have it exactly where I want it, and then we'll pull the backs off. I think it's good. I'm going to put a little bit of wet adhesive on the middle section because that's where it's going to grab that stem. Okay. And let's go ahead and put that into place. Like that, maybe a little higher. Yeah, right. I don't want the petal, the stem to stick out, but right there is good. And then we're going to do our bow. And I'm going to use, for the bow, I'm going to use a, what is it called? Mini glue dot. So let me grab that out of my drawer. And we're going to use our Take Your Pick tool to pull one of these little guys off. We'll grab this one right here. And I like to stick it to the back, in the center where the knot is, to kind of keep that from running off where it's not supposed to be. And then I'm going to lift this portion of my label and just tuck that knot right under there. Just like that. And then this is when we trim our piece. So let me get my ribbon scissor. And I love the length of that one, so I'm going to make this one about the same. Does it need to go a little shorter? Yeah, a little shorter right there. Maybe trim this one a hair. There we go. That looks awesome. And you see that when you move around the bow, how we did earlier, you kind of make it a little wild, right? And then it doesn't just follow the rules and stay in place. It kind of has its own little life, and I love the look of that little wild bow there on the corner. The final step is going to be the inside of our card. So this is our inner portion. I think I cut it 5 by 3 3/4, but I have to make sure. Yeah, 3 3/4 by 5. Since I didn't write down any dimensions, I had to be sure that that was accurate. Let's throw my little scrap piece away here and put away our mini glue dots. We don't need those right now. But let's go ahead and attach our flower here to our piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of wet adhesive, and we're going to put that on this part. And then we're going to make this, I'll show you the inside of this one piece, okay? And it's gonna kind of go sideways like that. And then we're gonna go ahead and flip that over, and we're gonna just put wet adhesive on the entire piece because this is gonna get glued flat to the inside of our card. So we wanna just move it around so that it touches all the edges. This adhesive is super strong, I love it. And let's go ahead and go all the way down our stem. And then, because I don't like getting glue on my fingers, I will be using my tweezers. So let me grab those. And we'll pick up this flower. And we're gonna put her on the edge right here of our inside piece, and just press that into place. And then let's go ahead and grab our silicone mat, because you know I make messes, and we will flip this over. A little bit more wet adhesive. Hope you guys have been enjoying this process. It is a little bit going on with this card in lots of places, but hey, that's okay. You learn lots of different techniques in one card, right? And let's go ahead and put this on the inside. And look, even though I made a disaster of that wet flower, it still turned out okay. I'm gonna go ahead and push this into place. That's why I love the wet adhesive, because it gives us that wiggle room until we're ready to push and lock into place. I think that we're good there. What do you guys think? And even though it was wet, you can see that you can't see that tear. I fixed it quite good. I'm gonna, looks like right here I have a little excess of those little dots. There we go. It must have stuck to my finger when I pushed that in place. But you can't even tell that it's been torn. And as it dries, it'll get better and better. And one of the things that I'm thinking about adding to these is possibly some Wink of Stella. We'll see as time goes on, but that was my design. I hope that you enjoyed. You can see every time you watercolor, you get different colors. This one had a little bit more brown. It wasn't as diluted as that one, but the flowers were a little more diluted. So every time you watercolor, you're gonna get a different look. Your cards are not gonna be identical, but that's part of the beauty of using watercolor. I hope that you guys will consider the Cheerful Daisies stamp set once the new catalog launches on the 2nd of May. And if you don't have a demonstrator, I would love to be your demonstrator. Just hit me up and I will talk with you guys later. If you haven't checked out my website, inkyhandswarmparts.com, you can see more detailed pictures of this card there. And I always post every day there, so you always have some place to get inspiration, even when I don't have a video on YouTube. So check that out. It's linked in the description below. And if you're looking for my online store, that's also linked there. Be aware that these products, except for some of them, cannot be purchased until May the 2nd when the new catalog goes live. And if you need a new catalog and you do not have a demonstrator, please let me know, and I will try and get one to you. This is Kelly with Inky Hands Warm Hearts. Happy stamping!